something, 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 Super Lilly Bros. Guys, it's really freaking good. It's really, really, really good.
So tell them what we did.
We went and we watched Spider-Man Far From Home.
No way
No
that
Way
this
Home.
is Far From Home.
This is
coming.
No Way Home from Coming.
No way, Jose.
3. And it's really good.
That was excellent.
That was listen to the words that are about to come out of my mouth. 10 out of 10 movie. Okay?
I am also up there somewhere.
It is at least a 9
to 10.
But it is a masterpiece. Okay?
Okay, so first we got to do our no spoilers.
Okay, yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about it in a non-spoilery manner, and then we're going to warn you appropriately, and then talk spoilers.
Yeah. And the non-spoilers will probably be very short because it is very hard to talk about without spoilers.
It is.
If you have not watched this movie, go back in time and stop yourself from clicking on this video. Because this is going to be as spoiler heavy. We are not holding back.
But we'll tell you when we switch
We're
over
fresh
to
out
that.
the theater right now.
We are fresh out of the theater. I am so psyched. I am beyond psyched. I was yelling in the car. I was very obnoxious in the theater. I am sorry to everyone who was there because I was cheering.
Sorry, not sorry, because that was phenomenal.
It was phenomenal.
Okay.
Like here's the thing. If you're wondering, should I go see Spider-Man No Way Home? The answer is yes.
It's a yes. It's a yes for me.
The answer is you've got to go watch it. Like, now.
Yeah.
Like, no, what are you doing right now?
If you have ever enjoyed Spider-Man content, if you ever liked Spider-Man before, watch this movie.
Yes, exactly.
It
I
was
can't
really
recommend
good.
it enough. You have wasted your life until now if it is in a theater and you are not watching it.
Yes.
It is amazing. Are there any specific points we should point out before we...
I will say the first half of the movie I did enjoy it. I really liked it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you would call it the halfway point, but kind of that point in the movie and on is when I was like, okay, this is just like from that point around the middle and on, I was like, oh, this is fantastic.
The split between Act 1 and Act 2 is what I would say, is when
it's
really
a little bit further in the movie, I think.
It starts to ramp up at the split there, but it really hits a high.
Yeah.
This, you know how there's like a criticism of most Marvel movies that the third act is the worst act in the movie?
Yeah.
Flip this on its head.
Yeah.
The first act of this movie is the worst act of the movie.
It's not bad, though.
It's not bad at all. But every criticism that I have for the movie comes in the first act.
Okay.
Not every criticism, but almost all of them. There's some pacing issues where you're kind of like, whoa, we're really clipping along here, aren't we?
Yeah.
But it's...
the first act of this movie doesn't feel like it's the first act of the last half of this movie.
Yeah.
It feels like a different movie almost entirely.
Yeah, it does.
Like, it leads into that, but it feels like completely different than, like, what ends up, like, happening in, like, the second half.
Yeah, it is definitely, like... It almost feels like Act 4 of Spider-Man Far From
It's like
Home.
an epilogue from the
it feels
last
like an
movie,
epilogue.
sort of.
But it's really well done. I want to point out in this section, too, the cinematography of this movie. That sounds kind of like a real weird, snobby thing to talk about, but it's really good. Like, I've never watched a Spider-Man movie before that I was noting the story that they were telling with the camera.
Really?
Yeah, they really put you in the seat of Spider-Man a lot. And that's actually especially true in the first act, but there's just a lot of stuff where I'm like, wow, this isn't just filming to get information into my eyes. This is getting me emotionally invested and very clever with how they're doing it. Like, there is a lot more storytelling with how they're filming it than what I'm used to in a Marvel film.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
What did you think about the villains?
How
do you think they handled the villains?
I think that they handled them well. I was really trepidatious about going into it because Spider-Man has a pattern of having too many villains in his movies and then doing them poorly.
Well, the villains in this movie already had like all their backstory already like established when they were in this movie, so they had time to do other stuff.
Yeah.
While still having like the characters in this movie, and I think they did a good job because they did the characters right. It seems like I think they did those characters right. I think they did Spider-Man really well.
They did.
I thought Tom Holland. This is like the most like actually like grown up he felt.
Yes.
In the first two movies, I kind of felt like I was like, okay, like let's get to like it didn't really feel like he was like it kind of felt like Spider-Man, but it didn't like get to the point where I was like, this is like 100% Spider-Man.
Yeah,
Kind
this
of felt
is
like
Spider-Man.
yeah, it was just like kind of just playing around.
Yeah.
Like kind of like a really little kid.
Yeah.
Had a couple good moments, but this movie they like really stepped it up. It's like heavy. It's like emotional. He felt like actual like serious Spider-Man.
Well, for the first two Spider-Man movies in the MCU, he's very much maturing. The first two movies are all about him looking for a mentor to show him how to be a hero.
Yeah.
And him having various levels of success with that. This is, now that he doesn't have an immediate mentor, he gets to step into his own. I know that's a criticism of the past two movies from a lot of people, but in watching this, it felt less like that was an accident and more like it was an arc.
Yeah,
Almost like the first two movies were the Spider-Man origin story, and this was the Spider-Man story.
Yeah. I do think he did almost all of his growth in this movie, though.
Yeah.
To like the first two movies was like the first like maybe like 10 to 20% of like I guess his like character arc or whatever, and then this is like the rest of that until like he's like 100% like Spider-Man.
Well, and I would say, to be fair, and this is partially because I'm used to syndicated media. I love reading comic books. Spider-Man in the comics matures, is basically in his first stage of growth from Amazing Fantasy 15 through Spider-Man number 33. Amazing Spider-Man number 33, he's basically the same person. And then from 33 to 122, he's basically the same person. We're covering about 6 years of content, maybe 7 years. I'm trying to do math in my head really quickly, of content before he really hits the stage of what I would call mature Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And so it's actually, ironically, kind of, it very much took a different path to get there, but it's very much reflecting that type of growth.
Yeah.
And I'm so proud of them.
They did it. I didn't think the MCU was going to do it, but I was not looking forward to this movie a ton.
Yeah.
Because I watched the first movie, I was like, that was pretty good. I watched Homecoming.
Yeah.
I was like, that was pretty good. And then I watched Far From Home. I was pretty disappointed. I didn't hate it, but I was pretty disappointed by that because it felt like they still weren't like nailing it. They like still felt like the same problems as the first one, and even more so.
Yeah.
I didn't love Mysterio. I kind of like a couple sequences, but I didn't love Mysterio.
Yeah.
And so when this came out, I was like, I kind of gave up hope that they were really gonna get Spider-Man right.
Yeah.
And bruh.
Yeah.
They pulled everything out and they made everything work that like I didn't even know I wanted.
Yeah. Yes, that's such a good way to put it. I'll also say that. So I have very strong opinions about Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And
I have grown strong opinions over time.
Yeah.
I'm not into like comics or anything, but seeing the movies and like talking to you, I have grown to love Spider-Man.
Right. And this is the first Spider-Man movie that I've ever seen that I have felt like the Spider-Man that I read in the comics is on the screen.
Yeah.
The first time ever.
I felt like not like kind of comic wise, but just like the Spider-Man that I know in my brain. Mm-hmm. Like I was like, this is him.
This is him. This is the first time, and I think that it'll be really uniting for a lot of the fan base.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot of like the sort of themes and stuff from the past movies that they kind of that I think everyone will be able to appreciate.
It almost felt like Spider-Verse in a way where it's just a love letter to everything Spider-Man.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's almost, this might be a little bit far, but it's almost an apology letter to people that have not been like pleased with Spider-Man and like some way or another.
Yeah.
And trying to like be like, hey, so this is like, here you go.
Yeah.
In some ways. That was my interpretation.
So Spider-Verse was my favorite Spider-Man movie until I watched this one.
Yeah.
And it made me sad that it was my favorite one because it was about Miles Morales, who I love Miles Morales a lot.
Yeah.
But it made me sad that, and genuinely sad, I'm not trying to dunk on it, but that there had been, 6, 7 Spider-Man movies?
Yeah.
And I hadn't felt like they had done Peter Parker justice yet.
Yeah, I felt the same way.
And in Spider-Verse, they do the concept of Spider-Man perfectly. They understand what makes Spider-Man work and what is important about him, that anyone can be Spider-Man, and that with great power comes great responsibility, and what that looks like practically, and what it looks like when you fail. And I didn't get to see that with my Peter Parker.
Yeah.
And I finally got to see that on screen. I'm welling up right now as I'm talking. I welled up in the theater. They did it.
It was good.
It was very good. It made me a happy boy. So,
is there anything else you want to say before we get into spoilers?
Yeah, real quick, I just want to say, visually, also not just cinematographically, but visually, they did some really cool stuff in this movie.
Doctor Strange stuff.
Yeah,
was really cool.
Doctor Strange stuff was really, really cool.
He was sidelined a little bit more than I thought he would be, but when he was in it was pretty cool.
Yeah, and it was. I was afraid he would be too much in it, and he was in it an appropriate amount.
Yeah.
Ned
and MJ, they're good. They're in it.
Yeah,
like always.
Like always. I would say
that again. The relationship between him and MJ.
Mm-hmm.
That was taken a lot more seriously in this movie, and I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Even though I was never like a massive fan of. I don't know if that was supposed to be Mary Jane or what they were trying to do with that, but I was just another thing that was like, it didn't really feel like Spider-Man. All the characters surrounding him in this universe didn't feel like Spider-Man characters.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I thought they did a good job with that, what they have established in the universe in this movie.
I've always felt like in this universe, they've had a really good love interest for this Peter. They've had a really good best friend for Peter, and they've had a really good mother figure for Peter. But that they've never felt like my Aunt May, my Harry Osborn, and my MJ.
Yeah.
And all of those things were tweaked a little bit, and I think they worked. I wouldn't say they didn't work before, but I think they worked better in this movie than they ever have.
Yeah. That's what I felt.
So, yeah. I finally got to see Spider-Man swing for more than 3 minutes or 3 seconds.
Yeah.
That was nice. And go and watch this movie.
Yeah, I think that's about it. That's all I can say until we cross the line.
Another criticism that I have: why in the world are these movies obsessed with making Tom Holland take off his mask 24/7?
Yeah.
It's just a problem I have. It's a personal thing. It's a personal vendetta. It's not fixed. 0 out of 10. I hate this movie.
It was okay. I take it all back. Yeah, that's all I got.
All right, that's all I've got for right now. So we are now going to do the spoiler warning.
Big spoiler warning.
I will probably put something obnoxious right here to let you know that a spoiler is coming. Big spoilers. Are you still here? You better be driving to go watch this movie.
Give him time. Everybody clear out.
Everyone clear out. Make sure your Bluetooth headphones aren't accidentally connected to your Alexa device.
You will kill yourself if you know spoilers from this movie. And you will regret it.
This is very important. Go into this movie blind.
Okay. I think we're good.
Okay, we're good.
Pretty much everything we wanted, everything that people theorized, came true in this movie.
All of it.
Everything.
Andrew Garfield is in this movie.
Andrew, Toby. Freaking Daredevil? Are you kidding me?
And Charlie Cox is Daredevil, and he is playing Daredevil, and he's perfect. and he's so good, and by the time you get to the end of the movie, you've forgotten that the perfect version of Daredevil that stepped off of the screen into Netflix has now stepped into, by some miracle, the MCU proper for the first time. That happens in this movie, and by the time you get to the end of it, you have forgotten it because the rest of the movie is so good that your mind is blown, and you're just like, oh, that's right. Daredevil was in this movie.
Daredevil got a haircut.
And it was a perfect scene. It was perfect. It was perfect.
That was the biggest shock to me, actually.
Yeah.
Because the other stuff, you cannot escape the internet. Everybody's been talking about that.
Yeah.
Daredevil, I did not see that coming. I was like, yeah, shut up, guys. There's no chance.
Right.
I didn't think Marvel was going to do it.
Yep.
Marvel has proved me wrong. They
Yep.
have made me feel like a 9-year-old again.
And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to bring an asterisk to the spoiler warning and say everything that's on the MCU is on the table for this conversation. So
What do you mean by that?
if you're not caught up on one of the shows or one of the movies or something in the MCU, like, it's also fair game. So just be careful.
Yeah.
You careful? Okay. Because they lined it up perfectly to have Kingpin appear in Hawkeye.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
At the
I was
same
wondering if that's
time.
what you're getting at.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at, but I
Okay.
wanted to be extra safe, you know.
Yeah, because we saw that, like, last night.
We saw that the night before.
Yeah, we watched
'Twas the
that
night
episode.
before Spider-Man. And
Yeah.
there was Kingpin, and then there's Charlie Cox, and it's the same actors, and I am so happy right now because there they are together in the MCU proper. Oh, I'm so happy.
I don't know what my parents did right, but God, thank you so much.
If no one else has my back, I know Kevin Feige has my back.
Yes, sir.
I am just so ecstatic that we're going to be hopefully building towards a movie, maybe a TV show. I'm open to whatever. But
Yeah, as long as he's in it,
yeah,
they're both in it, I think Marvel's gonna get it right.
I trust them.
Okay, so with everything that happens in this movie, I was telling you the thing it made me feel like is when I watched the first Avengers again,
Yes.
because it makes me feel like a movie doing something that I didn't know a movie could do
Yep.
and pulling it off
Yep.
in front of my eyes.
That's exactly, before you said that, that was also in my mind. Like, that is precisely how I feel. I haven't felt this good coming out of a movie theater since 2012.
Yeah.
When I was in high school, maybe I was in middle school then.
I was literally 12.
Yeah. Walking out of that theater and being like, I can't believe they did it. Because I went into Avengers, very trepidatious. There's too many characters. They're probably going to bungle it. You know, it's
I was young enough, I was like, I didn't know movies could do that. They're
Yeah.
all from different movies.
right.
I was like, and then I watched it, I was like, this works.
This
They did it,
works.
like, flawlessly.
Everyone has an arc. And it's like, and so I'm watching the Avengers and I there's that moment where you're like, this is special.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes you're watching a movie and it's like, this is a really great movie. And sometimes you're watching a movie and you're like, I am witnessing cinematic history.
Yeah.
Like, this has
never been done.
This has never been done. And I have never, not only has this never been done, but this could have been done so poorly.
Yeah.
Lord knows that when Sony is involved in a Spider-Man movie, they can drop the ball.
Yeah. So, before we talk about all the other stuff, we
Yeah.
should probably talk about what we think of the other Spider-Man movies.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Because I recently rewatched them.
Okay.
That was actually a stroke of luck because that is a perfect thing to do before watching this movie.
Yeah, I highly suggest doing that.
Rewatching all the Spider-Man movies because this movie also functions as a full-on sequel to those
This
movies.
is Spider-Man 4, this is Amazing Spider-Man 3, and this is also No Way Home. That is this movie.
And it works as all of those.
It works as all of those.
But yeah, so we are actually not the biggest fans of the Raimi movies. We really like. Well, what do you think?
I have to try and keep my opinion on the past movies short, and I want to actually have another discussion at some point about my full thoughts on the Raimi movies. But the short of it is, I deeply hate them.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because they have a lot of the aesthetic of what Spider-Man is, but they don't understand the fundamental things that make Spider-Man work.
Yeah.
And that movie got very popular and was part of the superhero boom and formed a picture in people's heads of what Spider-Man was like. And so now it went on to ruin Amazing Spider-Man because it couldn't do all this stuff that was aesthetically Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And No Way Home because it had been done twice before No Way Home, so they couldn't have an Uncle Ben. So those movies took all of my favorite things about Spider-Man, pooped on them, and then ruined it for the future.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people love those movies. You're welcome to love those movies. Listen, I have read every single Amazing Spider-Man comic that has ever been made. All 800 and something or other of them. I have read them. I am up to date. I have watched the entire 1960s cartoon, Spectacular Spider-Man, the 90s Spider-Man, and a whole crap ton of the video games. I am a big Spider-Man fan.
Yeah, at this point, I just both voluntarily and involuntarily just take it from you to know if Spider-Man is getting it right in like a movie or something.
Yeah.
Because like you know what you're talking about with Spider-Man.
I don't say this often. I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I did not like those movies.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go into why, because I would be here all day, but I did not like those movies. The Amazing Spider-Man movies, they got Peter Parker right. They understood Peter Parker, and they actually improved Gwen Stacy from the comics. Their dynamic was perfect, and everything surrounding that dynamic just didn't work. There was too much studio interference, and they just fell apart.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to love those movies. That was the first time I felt like I had seen something that was similar to what I loved about Spider-Man in a movie, but I was sad because it just, it just didn't work.
Yeah.
It was a good Spider-Man in a bad movie.
Yeah.
And then the MCU Spider-Man, he is good. They're good movies. And they've done a good job at thinking of, well, if Peter Parker didn't grow up in the 60s, but he grew up in the 2000s, how would he be different?
They tried to modernize it.
Yeah, what would New York look like in this era instead of the past era? And it would look a lot like a rom-com. Stan Lee wrote Spider-Man as an inheritor to the Archie comics ideas, and they really go for it. And I like a lot about them, but they still never feel like Peter Parker who's walked off the page.
Yeah, yeah.
He's always felt like another version of Peter Parker and not like Peter Parker.
Yeah, so I guess my take, it's a little bit less lengthy than that.
Sorry.
Well, because I don't know as much about, like, Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But I do really like Spider-Man. The Raimi movies, I have similar opinions to all of your opinions. The Raimi movies I don't really like a lot, but I do respect them in some ways. I thought they were super corny.
Yeah.
Super cheesy.
Yeah.
Very, they get some Spider-Man stuff right, but also other stuff it's just like surface level, and they don't really nail it.
Yeah.
I don't really like the casting of Tobey Maguire that much, or Mary Jane.
Sweet Christmas.
But I do really like the casting of most of the villains. I thought they were like fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the Raimi movies are a fun time. They're very memorable and like stylistic and super funny. Those movies are hilarious.
Yeah.
Especially the third one. I just rewatched them, and I got all my roommates. I was like, guys, we gotta watch. I forgot how funny these movies are.
They are the funniest movies
so
on the
funny.
planet.
It's mostly just Tobey Maguire doing involuntary stuff because he's just got the funniest face ever.
Right. He has three faces. He has ugly cry,
Harry,
angry Harry, and then nothing.
Yeah.
Deadpan, nothing.
Yeah, there's a lot of scenes just like the camera idling on his face as he's about to respond, and then it just cuts away before he responds. It's so funny. But yeah, that's the Raimi movies. Third one's terrible, by the way.
Yeah, obviously.
Amazing Spider-Man movies I actually liked more than most people.
Yeah.
I thought I really liked the first one. I was like, hey, like looks like they're finally getting Spider-Man right.
Yeah.
He is a little bit cool, but I don't think that's like a problem.
It's really not. Just take it from me. Spider-Man is cool. Okay.
Yeah, he's not supposed to be an absolute dork, like an absolute massive loser, like he was in the Raimi movies, because he's an absolute loser in those movies.
Right. he is antisocial, and then he gets bitten by a radioactive spider.
Yeah.
Then he's the coolest kid in class.
Like, he's smart, and he's, like, nerdy before he becomes Spider-Man. But, like, he's not... In the Raimi movies, he's just an absolute loser.
He feels like someone dropped an alien onto the planet trying to disguise themselves as a human being, trying to interact with other people.
Like Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, he feels like if Mike Zuckerberg had Spider-Man powers instead of money powers.
Hi, guys. But, yeah, I think Andrew Garfield... I think he got it really right. I love Andrew Garfield.
Nailed it.
Skateboarding's a little bit much.
That was stupid. Yeah.
He's a little emo, but that's whatever.
Yeah.
I like those movies. I like Amazing Spider-Man 1, Amazing Spider-Man 2. I think it has a lot of problems. I think a lot of people hate on it way more than I think it deserves. I think it has a lot of good things in it.
Yeah.
It has a lot of bad things in it. I think it's mixed.
Yep.
I think the score's great. Gwen Stacy's great. Emma Stone's amazing in those movies.
Yes.
Andrew Garfield's amazing in those movies. It has every once in a while have just an amazing scene. Yeah. So I like Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. MCU, Tom Holland is really, really young. He feels a little bit off to me, but I accept it. And like you said, all of like the side stuff around it really doesn't feel like Spider-Man to me. They connect him to Tony Stark, they connect him to everything else, and they just can't let that go. And all those things combined really doesn't make it feel like a Spider-Man movie.
Somehow less than the sum of its parts.
Yeah, and I like the movies. I think like MCU usually almost always does a good job with their movies. Like the characterization is good. They're fun.
There's 2-3 movies in the MCU that are actually bad.
These days, there's a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
They've kind of been on a bad streak lately, but at least for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, I like Homecoming. I didn't love Far From Home, but it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, all that to say that this movie somehow fixes all three franchises.
I forgive Sony. I forgive Tobey Maguire. I forgive Sam Raimi.
It is a love letter, and it also fixes them at the same time.
At the same time, it is. Okay, so you said this earlier, and I'm not stealing this because I had this in my head before, but I'm going to say it to the mic first. That
thank you.
It felt like there are bits and pieces of who Spider-Man is scattered throughout Spider-Verse, Spider-Man 1, 2, 3,
I've always
Amazing
felt like that.
through all these different franchises. There's just a hint of what is really Spider-Man in them. But this movie didn't just put all those people on screen. It took all the things that was who Spider-Man is and put them into one movie, and suddenly everything that I've ever liked about any of the Spider-Man movies and everything that I've ever liked about Spider-Man to me was in front of me.
Yeah.
For the first time.
Almost every scene since they were on screen was like perfect.
Yes.
Like a perfect like representation, perfect like mixture.
Yes.
Of all the Spider-Man stuff that I've seen from those movies.
Like, this is Spider-Man.
Yeah.
This is what Spider-Man has always meant to me. Is what's in this movie. I want to touch on this too. Tell me if I'm moving to this too quickly, but Andrew Garfield and Tobey both. So this is what I expected if they were in the movie at all. I wanted them in the movies just for the memes, because no matter how much they denied they were in the movie, the fans just doubled down that they were in the movie. So I wanted it just because I wanted it to be hilarious that they were in it, right?
I don't know why Andrew Garfield has gotten so much garbage from everyone, and Tobey Maguire has gotten nothing. Dude's been making movies, cannot catch a break while doing other movies.
Spider-Man dang near ruined his career, and it's so tragic because he's of all of them is the only one who grew up reading Spider-Man comics. But I thought at best we would get a cameo, Spider-Man's flowing through the multiverse and they're, oh cool, hey, that's Tobey's Spider-Man, oh there's a flash of Electro or something, real quick.
When I saw it, I thought there was no way the MCU was ever going to do that, and then I saw the villains in the trailer, the first trailer, and I was like, I don't know how they're gonna have the villains in this movie.
Yeah.
From directly from the Raimi and the Amazing Spider-Man 2 movies.
Yep.
And just not have them in it. I was
Yeah.
like, I don't know how they would do that. So I was kind of like, holy crap, they actually might do the thing that everybody has been theorizing, everyone's been ignoring for years.
And so, but I didn't let myself hope too much. And even then, once again, there's a lot of problems with those movies. So at best, I thought that it would be kind of like Quicksilver's appearance in WandaVision.
Yeah.
Where it was like a nod and like, hey, we know what's up.
It was kind of like a little fake, like kind of like a one-off.
Yeah, like a little fun thing. They actually are characters in this movie. These are not cameos.
Yeah.
These are not. It's fan service. I was gonna say it's not fan service. This is absolutely fan service.
It's fan service done right.
It's fan service done right because they come in and they are right where we left them in those other movies.
Yeah.
They've developed.
I think so. I'm a little shady on where like they come in.
Right.
I'm a little bit like I don't.
They've experienced stuff.
Yeah.
And everything that you remember about them is now, like, they evolved to the next step. Tobey Maguire has evolved from a high school kid to a college kid, and now in this movie, he's an adult mentor figure.
Yeah.
Andrew Garfield is still mourning the tragedies that he's gone through, and it's so perfect because it lines up with what Andrew Garfield, the actor, has gone through with his career as Spider-Man, loving Spider-Man, and then Spider-Man really wrecking his career.
Yeah.
And that getting tied into his loss of Gwen, all of that is redeemed in this movie.
Yeah.
I was afraid even then that it would be Tobey Maguire, your favorite Spider-Man, and also Andrew Garfield. I know you have to include him too. No, they're both true characters, and they go on arcs during the movie.
If I were to choose one that was probably more prominent, it would probably be Andrew Garfield.
Yeah, I would probably choose him. Him going and saving MJ at the end of the movie.
They really gave him a moment.
I cried.
Yeah.
A lot.
When I saw that, I thought that might happen. I was like, but once again, I was like, there's no way they would do that.
Yeah.
They freaking did it.
It is the. I told you this in the car. I would love to see an Amazing Spider-Man 3. But because it just ends on a dangling participle, and we needed to see him deal with what happened in that movie. We don't need an Amazing Spider-Man 3 in the way we did before.
Yeah.
This movie finishes Andrew Garfield's arc.
Yeah.
He's come full circle, and he's coped with what he dealt with. And that's beautiful.
I mean, I would still like one, but...
Yeah, me too.
But, yeah, this did a good job with him. It did a good job representing both of them.
Yeah.
And their villains.
Yeah. Yeah, it absolutely did. I don't even know how to put it. It just... They nailed it. With all of them, they grow, they change. It's not a cameo. It is... They are characters in this movie, and they are the same character. That's another thing we wanted to tap on. These are the characters from the movies you've seen. These are not... And
they've, like, added to it as well. They've, like, taken that story, be like, this is the story that you know, and here's what's, like, kind of, like, fill in the gaps of what's kind of happened since then, sort of.
Yeah.
And also, like, them just being those characters.
Yeah.
I will say one thing... This is probably one of the only like critiques I have of it. MCU still doing it. It was funny sometimes, but it's still doing the thing where it has to like shoehorn in those MCU jokes because they always have to do that.
Yeah.
And they do put those into like all of the villains and the other Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And it's not terrible. It works most of the time, but I still was kind of like, okay, like this isn't something they would actually say. Like this is just like a writer making a joke, like. Through the character every once in a while.
That happens. I agree with that. I will say it fits a little bit more because the quippiness of the MCU is based off of the quippiness that started in Spider-Man comic books all the way back in the 60s.
Yeah.
The problem is that's kind of like how the DCEU got too Batman and too dark and grim, where Superman was like Batman and Wonder Woman had to be like Batman. The MCU got too Spider-Man. Everyone's quippy. Everyone's funny. So the quips work better for me because I know Spider-Man is supposed to be a little more lighthearted and quippy. That being said, there were definitely some moments where I'm like, I don't think those characters would have said that.
Yeah. Well, that's because it's just kind of the tone thing.
Yeah.
Like, characters saying stuff because they want to, like, have a joke there, but that character wouldn't actually say that. Especially, like, if it was in a Raimi movie or a Amazing Spider-Man movie, like, they would never say that.
Yeah.
Because those movies take themselves a little bit more seriously than MCU movies do.
Yeah.
Yeah, mostly, like, the villains would say stuff. I'm like,
Yeah.
It wasn't, like, terrible, but, like,
Yeah.
I usually have that problem. It stuck out a little bit more in this one because these are characters from other movies.
Yeah, these are pre-existing characters.
Yeah, and movies that I like, characters that I know, like, who they are, I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
And they kind of, like, and then, like, putting that onto them kind of, like, made it feel, like, stick out a little bit more.
Yeah.
For me. But I still love the way they treated the villains.
Okay, let's talk about the villains real quick.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do this thing. Okay. Green Goblin's off limits until let's talk about all the others.
That's a different.
And then talk about Green Goblin.
Yeah.
Okay. So go ahead. Do you want to go first?
We had. Hold on. Let me think of everybody in here.
Lizard, Electro,
Sandman,
Dr. Octavius.
Dr. Octavius. I liked.
Mm-hmm.
I was really surprised that he was like kind of. They finished his arc too.
They did.
I didn't even think about that.
Everyone comes to a conclusion.
Yeah.
Literally, everyone gets a conclusion.
People that you thought had a conclusion, they bring them back and give them a more conclusion.
A deeper, better conclusion than what they got in their original movies.
Yeah.
So,
there's a couple, I feel like Lizard and Sandman were a little bit sidelined.
Yeah.
Not terribly bad.
That's fine for me if they sideline. You know, I don't need every single villain to have, like...
They were kind of lesser villains than the other ones.
Yeah, and that's okay.
In those movies.
In the Sinister Six comic books, that's true too. You know, the Sinister Six comic books are largely about Dr. Octopus, and that's fine with me.
Yeah, so I thought they did a good job with pretty much all the villains. They all felt like them. Like I said, they joke a lot.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's not.
Sandman brought up his daughter because he has to. He's
I was
contractually
laughing
obligated
so hard.
to say it.
Because I just saw the Spider-Man 3.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, I was like, oh, he talks about his daughter a lot. But I remember it being, like emotional. Yeah. And I watched it, I was like, oh, he literally just says, I have a daughter.
That's, like, all he says.
50 times.
Yeah.
And then he says that exact same phrase.
Yeah. I have a daughter.
Yeah, they actually do a lot of meme stuff in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, they're very self-aware with, like,
I'm a bit of a doctor myself.
I'm a bit of a scientist myself. They, a lot of the Spider-Man do little exchanges where they like are clearly like looking directly into the camera.
Yeah,
they do a lot of that.
Yeah,
I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, they tweaked Electro, and I liked the Electro that was in Amazing Spider-Man 2. I know that's a hot take, but I did like him.
Yeah,
he also was not Electro from the comics. In the comics, Electro is just some guy. He's basically, what if a goon, like a random henchman from a larger villain, suddenly had the powers of a god.
Yeah,
that's the idea of Electro. It's such a clever idea, because what would someone like that do with the powers of a god? Would he go to higher existence? Would he begin to try and form a religion or get worshipped? No, he would rob a bank.
Yeah.
And he would cuss at Spider-Man.
They changed him the most of all the other villains,
and it worked. I'm going to be honest with you.
I thought it was good, because Jamie Foxx is always good.
He's always good. I didn't mind him in Amazing Spider-Man 2. The tweaks, I think they worked. I was really happy with it. I'm glad we got the little Electro mask.
Yeah, and that in and of itself is like, someone, I forget who it is, someone like says directly, like, didn't you used to like be like a nerd and like a comb over?
He says, yeah, I got a makeover in this universe.
Yeah, and then I thought it was gonna be explained, but them doing that was kind of being like, hey, like we're gonna change.
You want this different, right?
So everybody shut up.
Yeah,
that's called everyone shut up, please.
Yeah. Well, and I like to, because he has an arc, because at the end, Amazing Spider-Man comes up to him and says, hey, I still see you.
Yeah.
I never didn't see you.
That's what I'm talking about.
I've always cared about you. We never got that moment because we had to cut his moment short so that Green Goblin could kill Gwen Stacy in Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
In this movie, that gets redeemed. Sandman, Do you have any more? It was kind of weird that they wouldn't let the actor play Sandman. It almost felt
But they did have the actor.
And then all of a sudden he was in it. I think he had like one
that.
day on set. I think him and the Lizard had one day on set.
Yeah, because he's the biggest actor in this movie.
I know. It's like you got Tobey Maguire, but you couldn't get freaking whoever the heck played Flint Marko. You know.
I will say one thing. I thought it was cool that his intro in this movie was directly from the third one, where he's like on his side.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, this is Peter Parker, like, I'm going to help him.
Yeah.
Which, like, they didn't have to do that. That's kind of stuff, like, they didn't have to do that, but...
That's true of the movies, and it's true of the comics, where Sandman, he's normally part of the Sinister Six, but he's always like, I don't want to be a bad guy, I want to do the right thing, and he kind of goes on this arc where he flips between the two a lot. I don't know if you know, the Sandman was actually an Avenger for a while.
I did not.
Yeah, he flips between the two, but he wants to do the right thing, but he's just... He gets sucked back into bad stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, they were all good. Doc Ock, I was surprised that they like did that with him, where they like made him into a good guy.
Yeah.
Even for the finale, he was good. He was a good guy.
Yeah.
So I was very surprised. I almost maybe wanted him to like be part of like the Sinister Six.
It would have been
sort of,
nifty.
Even though there's not even 6 of them.
Yeah, it would have been nifty if they had gotten Vulture and had Doc Ock be a villainous until the very end. But, you know...
Wait a second. They had the ball up to the tee there.
I know.
They set it up for Vulture to...
Here's the thing.
Well, I just remember
You know
that.
what? They got Toby and Garfield. I'm okay. I will accept
I don't care about anything after what I just saw.
I will.
I just noticed that.
Yeah, I thought about that the whole time. I was like, are they going to go recruit the Vulture or something while they're gone? But, you know, it's okay. I'm happy. I'm happy with what they did with Doc Ock. He's still not the Doc Ock from the comics, but he is... the best version that he could possibly be from the Raimi movies.
Yeah.
Who else is in there?
You want to get to Green Goblin?
Lizard. I'm just making sure we haven't missed anybody. Okay, yeah, let's get to Green Goblin.
You can go ahead.
Green Goblin and Doc Ock are my 2 favorite villains, like ever.
Like period.
It's for everyone who wants to know, Joker, Doc Ock, and Green Goblin are all tied for my first favorite villains because they're all awesome.
That sounds very cliche, but I feel like they are very good villains.
I know. And you know who number 4 is? It's Thanos. Ask me who my favorite band is. It's the Beatles of the Queens.
And Imagine Dragons.
My favorite food is good food. But I love the Green Goblin and I love Dr. Octopus. I've always been really sad because Green Goblin is always... William Dafoe has always done an excellent job, but he was better than the movies he was in. And because they didn't have this idea of syndicated storytelling when they made the first Raimi movies, I always felt like I wanted to see more of him and see... Because the Green Goblin evolves, and it's really interesting how he does. You know, he starts just off as this random guy. He kills Gwen Stacy, and suddenly it becomes real for Spider-Man in a different way.
Yeah.
So when Green Goblin kills Gwen Stacy, Spider-Man stops being Spider-Boy and becomes Spider-Man.
Yeah. Which is important to this movie.
It's very important to this movie. In the comics, Spider-Man almost kills Green Goblin after he kills Gwen Stacy.
Yeah.
He comes very close. And at the last second, he stops himself. And that's when he decides to be a hero and stop being vengeful. Because up until that point, Spider-Man was somewhat vengeful, but he wanted to do the right thing, but he had this really dark, angry streak in him.
Yeah.
Having Green Goblin... He always felt like Spider-Man's rival, but he never felt like he had been enough of a rival to Tobey's because he died in the first movie.
Yeah.
You know?
He also, even though I think William Dafoe did an incredible job, it was still like, felt very Raimi-esque, so it was like very 2000s, very over the top.
Yeah.
There was a lot of really good scenes with him, and it's very iconic, but like, I think they could have done the character a little bit more faithful.
Yeah. And here's a very... low blow. This isn't fair, but the costume sucks.
Oh, you don't like the costume?
In the original.
Yeah.
I hated that Power Rangers villain TV morning. How much money do we have left in the budget? Oh, just $20.
I actually thought they like overspent on that costume, and it still ended up not looking good.
It looks so bad. Now the Green Goblin costume's hard to translate. I get it, but Sweet Christmas, that was bad.
Yeah.
And it was distractingly bad. God, I hated that costume.
Apparently.
Because it was like a shell preventing William Dafoe, the perfect acting choice.
I did like when the eyelids came up, you could see his eyes.
Yeah.
That looked
cool.
really cool to me.
Yeah, and when you could see his mouth talking behind the mouth.
Yeah, he looked like really evil.
Yeah.
When those parts.
I like that. I like when he's behind the fire and he kind of looks satanic, you know? Yeah, that's cool.
Finish it!
Finish it!
Finish it!
From evil!
That was a weird scene, not gonna lie.
But, they made him a rival to this Spider-Man. I was like, how are they?
They did it so... I'm sorry. They did it so well.
They did it perfectly. By killing...
They mixed like 3 things in that scene. With Aunt May dying.
Yeah.
They had him kill Aunt May, which was like the Spider-Man Gwen Stacy thing. Because it was Green Goblin killing like his loved one. They did the Uncle Ben.
Yeah.
Great power comes great responsibility. Finally. And they did it all in Aunt May.
Yeah.
Which was already a character that we knew and loved, and a Spider-Man character.
Yeah.
It all worked so well.
It was perfect. How did they combine it so well? It could have been combined and been like, that didn't work.
Yeah.
But it was put together with love and care from people who loved the movies, probably more than I did, and loved the character. And they made him evil. They fixed the costume even. He has a little purple hood.
Yeah, that was... When I saw that was so cool.
I'm a happy boy. And I felt that death, and then it even then, I thought it would be like, okay, well, you know, I'm just going to defeat him, and they're probably going to have Tobey defeat the Green Goblin. No. They even made it push Peter in the right direction to be angry and then have to choose to be a hero with Tobey.
Which... That's what the Tom Holland Spider-Man was missing.
Yes.
That was like the missing piece.
It was the missing piece. And now I feel like this is, God, what a bad... Here I go. The web all around him was right, but that centerpiece of that spider web was not spun, and they just put it right in there. And it's like, oh, there's Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I found him.
I don't know if this was planned or not.
Yeah.
But it almost seems like all of that was for this movie.
Yeah, I normally would say that worked out conveniently, but Kevin Feige is a god amongst men.
I don't know how he does it.
I don't know how he does it. If someone told me that he had planned this from the beginning, I would believe him.
Yeah.
It
really does seem like it when you watch it. It's like, oh, this leads directly into this, and you meant to do that.
Yeah.
In fact, I might believe that he meant to do
that. I will look into it. I'm going to be looking at every interview I can find. But William Dafoe finally got to reprise his role in such a way that he got to access much more of his potential as the character, I felt.
Yeah, it was so good.
Yeah.
I don't even know the Green Goblin that well, and I was like, this is the Green Goblin.
This is the Green Goblin.
I'm watching the Green Goblin on a movie screen.
There's a slight tweak, I would say, which is, in the comics, at first it seems like Norman Osborn is a good guy, and then the Green Goblin serum hits, and it turns out that the Green Goblin is evil, and they're fighting for a personality.
Yeah.
No. Actually, it's Norman Osborn is a horrible person, then the Green Goblin forms a second identity that's also a horrible person.
Yeah.
And so it's two horrible people, both who hate Peter Parker and hate Spider-Man on a personal level.
Raimi really likes to do that. I'm like a genuinely good person, and just like something happens to him and he turns evil from like hypnosis or something.
Yeah,
he does that with like
same
all
thing
his
with
villains.
Dr. Octopus.
Yeah.
You know, they even kind of did it with the lizard at the end. It's not important, but but I like this take that it's two separate personalities. I think that was the original intention of Stan Lee anyway. So who cares? It works. It's good. Having Norman get into Peter's personal life from the beginning, and like they literally did the twist that Norman Osborn is actually a bad guy twice.
Oh yeah, I guess.
everyone went into that movie knowing that Norman Osborn was a bad guy, and still we were surprised that Norman Osborn was a bad guy.
Yeah, they turned it back and then subverted our expectations by not subverting it.
It was perfect. It's
perfect.
It
was really good.
It worked just the way it should have.
I don't know why it's that one scene. It's so ingrained in my mind. That one scene in the movie where he's like punching him, and he's like laughing like the Joker.
Yeah,
and he keeps punching him. I was like, that is so good. That was amazing.
That is so good. He just wants to. He hates Spider-Man so much. He wants not to just destroy Spider-Man, but destroy everything he stands for. He hates him.
Yeah.
He is the embodiment of, with great power comes great ability to like, he's the opposite. He's like, because he's powerful, he feels like he doesn't have a responsibility, but the rest of the world has a responsibility to him to give him what he wants.
Yeah.
That's the idea, is might makes right behind Green Goblin.
Yeah.
And they nail it.
So good.
It's so good, and I don't know. What do you think about making Aunt May be the great power comes great responsibility sayer?
That was one of the things where I was like, they couldn't have the Uncle Ben thing.
Yeah. He just wanders on for just that scene. Oh, hey, Peter! I've come back from the grocery store.
Each of them comes through the portal with their respective Peter Parker. With great power comes great responsibility. You just say it on repeat throughout the whole movie.
Amazing Spider-Man Uncle Ben is like, when you have a lot of things that you have to do them right.
He has like a chalkboard. He's like, see, now this is power. And he's like a bunch of math equations, and this is responsibility.
I don't know how to say this more efficiently, but
yeah. What were we talking? Okay, yeah, that's right. I thought that they couldn't have that in the cards because they couldn't. That was just never on the board. That's what I wanted, is for that to happen with Tom Holland Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't, this is the perfect move for them to do,
perfect.
I thought.
It's perfect. And people are going to disagree with this. They waited until the right time to say it.
Yeah. That's what I was talking about with, like, they felt like it led up to that.
Yeah. Because in the first one, he was trying to take responsibility, but he just wanted to be a neighborhood Spider-Man. And he kind of got wrapped up in hero worship.
Yeah.
In the second one, he was like, this isn't my responsibility. I got to pass this off on someone better than I am.
Yeah.
And then in this one, he realizes, no, everyone is my responsibility. Yeah. Up to and including, Aunt May says, you need to take care of these people. And he says, that's not my problem. He says two lines.
He says, it's not my problem.
And I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but he says the line that Toby says before Uncle Ben dies, and the line that Andrew says before Uncle Ben dies.
Oh, yeah. I don't remember what Andrew says. It's not as memorable for some reason.
Right, well, yeah. So, it's almost like this whole time, for all of these movies, he has been trying to shirk responsibility. He has refused to take on the fullness of the hero mantle. He wants to only help in small ways, but he doesn't want to do the full extent.
Yeah, it seems like he's just having fun being a hero.
Yeah.
That's just kind of all he's been doing so far.
Yeah, and there's even, like he does stuff that is hard for him, but it always feels like those problems are caused by him trying to shirk responsibility in the first place.
Yeah.
And in this movie, he finally realizes, I can't just do the bare minimum to help people.
Yeah.
I have great power, and therefore I have an equal amount of responsibility.
Like, that part it seems very important to the Spider-Man character.
It is. And having Aunt May say it, I think it worked.
I think they needed to have a scene like that, and choosing to do it that way was the right way to do it.
It was the right way to do it.
Because by the end of this movie, I think I really want more Spider-Man movies in the MCU now, like more than I ever have.
Yeah.
Because the way it ends, we have Spider-Man now.
We have Spider-Man.
They could do whatever they want with Spider-Man now.
And they've renewed for 3 more Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, you told me that. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
I thought I heard that Tom Holland was like done or something like that.
There was a whole thing, but
I am glad to hear that's not true.
There was negotiations. Sony almost took Tom Holland away.
To do
a Venom Spider-Man movie.
They're always fighting over custody.
Yeah. They're like divorced parents.
Yeah.
But they worked together on this movie, and I just want to say I'm so proud of everyone who did
Flawless.
this.
Flawless teamwork.
Thank you so much for putting aside your differences and working together, because you created something that I, a Spider-Man fan, for almost my entire life. The first comic book I ever picked up was Killing Joke. The second one I picked up was Spider-Man. I've been reading Spider-Man ever since I was 7 years old, and you made something that made me happy.
Yeah, I have been wanting... I have just been constantly disappointed and looking back and being like, I can't find a Spider-Man movie that I really, really, really like a lot.
That without some kind of asterisk.
Yeah, there's all of them have something really good about them.
Yeah.
All the trilogies, but none of them are like nailing it.
Yeah.
Which I've just find myself like wanting them to nail a Spider-Man movie.
Yeah.
Which I was kind of hopeless because I was like, well, they tried it so many times, they're just not going to try anymore.
There's just no way.
So
Home.
It was like, Peter, there's no way home. So this was like a saving grace.
Yeah.
Spider-Verse was amazing too.
Spider-Verse was good. It just wasn't. It had Peter in it, but it wasn't like about Peter Parker.
Yeah, that wasn't like It was a phenomenal movie, but
Yeah.
it didn't feel like a main Spider-Man like film.
It was about the idea of Spider-Man and not about Peter Parker's dynamic with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's not the movie they were trying to make.
Yeah. But like I said, now they can do whatever they want. They have him moving to the apartment.
Yeah.
They have him. He finally made his classic suit.
Yeah.
Nobody knows he's Spider-Man anymore.
Yeah.
Which is very essential.
Yeah.
He's got his great power comes great responsibility. He has
Family member has passed away recently.
Yeah, he has the entire Spider-Man bundle now.
This is what Spider-Man was like Gwen Stacy dies in 122, Green Goblin dies in 123. This is the Spider-Man in Amazing Spider-Man 124. Welcome.
Perfect.
Welcome. Here he is. He has no money. He doesn't have Tony Stark resources anymore.
Yeah.
He has a recent death that is motivating him to do better and be a better person. He has recently decided, I will not be motivated by anger. I won't be motivated by revenge. I will be a hero because with great power comes great responsibility. The great power with great responsibility means something new than it did before.
Yeah.
Because he had said before, when bad things happen, you have the power to stop them, and you don't stop them, they happen because of you. So he had that somewhere in him already.
Yeah.
But it has taken on new meaning, and he believes that he is carrying on the will of his mentor when he does things. He's penniless. He has no connections. He's just a normal guy trying to do what's right.
Yeah, and it also felt like they were kind of breaking off like connections to like the overall MCU, so he's not like just like connected to some other MCU thing.
Yeah.
Like this movie very much felt like it was its own Spider-Man universe type movie.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like they had like other MCU stuff, but like they didn't have like a ton of it didn't feel like it was just connected to something else. Like that was in its identity.
And they've left it open. He can romance other girls now if he wants, or he can
That's true,
pursue.
yeah.
They can either go the Steve Rogers route and make this tragic thing that loops back around 3 movies later and they're together finally.
Yeah.
Or they can go the Amazing Spider-Man comics route and let him, date some people until he finds Mary Jane Watson and or Gwen Stacy. I don't know what they're going to do.
I really hope they do that.
Yeah, I hope so too. I would love to see Go Get 'Em Tiger, red hair, MJ.
Yeah.
Because I still haven't seen her on screen yet because Raimi movies doesn't count. But I hope they don't mess it up. I'm afraid that they will. But I have more hope for Spider-Man movies now than I've ever had before.
Yeah. I did not expect that coming out of the theater.
Yeah.
I am a different person than walking into that theater.
I met Jesus in that theater.
Yes.
I have changed fundamentally.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just felt the need to get it all out.
Yeah.
All my thoughts out because that was like I need to talk about that. That was so good.
It was a 10 out of 10. We've said the things that we would have changed about it, but it's a masterpiece.
Yeah. Like I said, it was the only thing I can think of that matches my experience of it is like a Avengers movie or maybe Endgame or something like that where I'm like it wasn't a perfect movie. It didn't get like it wasn't like flawless. There's problems.
Yeah.
But the things it achieves is like, that was a masterpiece.
And it's not just an achievement because, oh, I recognize that guy's face. He's from the other movies, but now he's in this one. That's great. It is the best version of how they could have done it.
I fell in love with Marvel because of the Marvel movies, because they knew exactly how to do fan service right. So it feels rewarding and the characters are done right.
Yeah.
That's when I was watching like earlier Marvel, I feel like over time they've gotten kind of stale with a lot of things they do right.
Yeah.
Not all the time, but a lot of movies now don't carry that same feeling that they used to. I feel like this movie kind of brought that feeling back of like why people started originally watching Marvel movies.
Yeah.
Because they're fun, they're funny, and they're just so incredible to watch happen on screen, just witness.
And they understand the essence of their characters. This is the difference between a Marvel movie and a DC movie. They change stuff all the time in the Marvel movies. Civil War is very different between the two. You know, Tony Stark has a lot of differences, but the things that are inherent to the characters are always brought forward.
Yeah.
And developed and sometimes even improved.
Yeah, which is why I've always been frustrated with Spider-Man in the MCU, because they couldn't do that because it had already been taken.
Exactly.
And they figured out a way around it.
They figured out a way around it. It's genius. If I made this movie, I couldn't have done a better job.
I would have screwed it up.
I would have
screwed it up so bad. If they gave me what they were going to do in this movie, and they were like, write a good movie, I would not have been able to do it.
I wouldn't have been able to do it. And I know that sounds arrogant, like I could do that with every other movie I've been handed. Obviously, that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah.
But oftentimes when I'm watching a movie, I'm just like, how did you miss this? How did you miss that? How did you make... I'm sorry I always hit on this, but Batman v Superman. How did you make a movie about Superman and Batman bad?
Yeah.
You know, I didn't have a lot. I just needed to see them punch each other and have a good time. And you missed it so fundamentally and thoroughly. Why? Because you don't understand what makes these characters work.
Yeah.
And... for the first time, I feel like they made Spider-Man, they understood what makes him work and what makes the rest of the people around him work.
Yeah, that's true, too.
Other just little tidbits before we close. This also felt very much like a comic book, and that sounds silly with everything else I've been saying, but, like, the interconnectedness of the universe is just right. In a normal Spider-Man comic book, if he has a problem, he's going to go to the Fantastic Four, Doctor Strange, or Daredevil normally to help him. Maybe
they've reached a point in their movies now where they can just act like a normal shared universe.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, I have a problem, so I'm going to go to this person that you already know from something else.
Yeah.
Just for a second, and that feels completely normal.
Yeah.
Like it does like in like the comics and stuff.
Yeah, and they nailed it. Doctor Strange's like level of appearance makes sense. Spider-Man has had some really cool adventures with Doctor Strange where he's like swinging through the multiverse, and they nailed it. They did that perfect. That was one of my favorite sequences. It was creatively very interesting to watch.
Oh, another little thing I had is I still feel like Doctor Strange is a little like underpowered in these movies.
Yeah, it's an MCU movie.
It was cool when Spider-Man like took him out. I was like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was like, would that ever happen? Like, it's Doctor Strange. How in the world would Doctor Strange lose to freaking Spider-Man?
There are versions of Doctor Strange that could lose the versions of Spider-Man because his power goes up and down all over the place depending on what's going on in his life.
I just feel like Doctor Strange should just be able to control reality.
Yeah.
Like, if he wanted to, he could just, like, freeze his body or something.
Yeah.
Mess with it, so there's no way.
Max power Doctor Strange, Spider-Man doesn't stand a chance. MCU Doctor Strange is different than that. And even comic Doctor Strange, sometimes he will lose all of his powers almost entirely. So he goes up and down in powers, but it was kind of crazy that he beat him. But they made him beat him in a believable way.
Yeah, like I said, I thought it was pretty cool.
I was amazed that I was like, oh, I believe that could happen.
Yeah, I believe that could happen, but I also think like earlier in the fight, he should have just laid him out like immediately. I feel like he was doing all this like cool like trick stuff.
Yeah.
But he wasn't actually like attacking him.
Yeah. But that was so comic booky because that's how it always works in the comics. It's like, I have a slight misunderstanding with you. Do you want to talk it out? No, actually, I'd like to do something rash and screw everything up and fight you instead.
I don't mind that. I love that.
Everyone wants to see everyone fight everyone else. And that's, They did it in the Avengers. They did it in this. It was a really cool fight. I was really happy with it. The 3 Spider-Men going out and swinging together and standing on screen together was a thing of beauty.
Yeah, I don't know how that image didn't get leaked.
That is insane.
Yeah.
If the image had been leaked, no one would have believed it.
That's true.
Everyone would have been like, "Oh, Photoshop." You know,
yeah.
No one would have believed that.
The most real image imaginable, and people have been, that's clearly fake.
It's clearly fake. Let's see. What else? Oh, back to Doctor Strange. Here's a criticism I have. He's a bit of a jerk. Like, his logic was airtight, but
he's always a little bit of a jerk.
He is. That's true. I guess it's consistent with who he's been in the universe so far, but I was definitely... This was my first time where I felt like he crossed the line. I was like, you're a bad person for making this, like, clearly very young man choose to just kill these people.
It's, like, morally gray, I would say.
Oh, yeah. No, let me be clear. I agree the situation is morally gray, and I think his logic is very understandable and believable. The way he went about it was just an absolute jerk move. No, you personally, Peter Parker, have to sentence these people to death.
Yeah.
And if you don't, it's because you don't understand the multiverse, kid.
Yeah. Call
me sir. It's like, okay, let's pump the brakes.
Yeah. All that sir stuff, I don't know about that. They really like name jokks in the MCU, and
especially
I don't know
around Doctor Strange.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm on board for all, like, every single movie having a name joke.
I'm the Power Man. I'm Spiderling. you know. But you bring up, it is kind of internally consistent. He definitely was like, with the Time Stone, I will leave you behind and let you die if I have to save the Time Stone.
He's a massive jerk in his first movie.
Yeah.
Like, he's just kind of established to just be a douche.
You know, I think you just convinced me on that. Yes, it's internally consistent.
My only thing is, like, I thought he would have maybe, like, grown by now.
Yeah, well, he's only had one movie by himself.
Technically.
So he hasn't had time to evolve to himself, I guess.
But you know what else is coming now?
Hey,
I was not expecting that.
Post-credit scenes.
Post-credit scene, technically.
Yeah, I guess it was a post-credit scene and also a trailer.
Yeah, so that was also phenomenal.
Okay, so I watched Venom, Let There Be
I haven't,
Let There Be Carnage.
I haven't seen
what
it.
A horrible name. It's my new favorite movie ever because it's the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It is the cringiest thing I've ever seen. It is so bad. And I laughed all the way through it.
I just laughed when they said that phrase in the end of the first movie. Just Woody Harrelson in the wig saying, let there be carnage. I was laughing my butt off.
We'll take that scene and make it an entire movie, and that's Venom, Let There Be Carnage.
I'm willing to watch that.
Oh, we gotta watch that. But, I was laughing all the way through until I saw that movie's post-credit scene, and all of a sudden, it showed that Venom was in the MCU.
Yeah.
And I was like...
Which I actually did know that. I had heard about that through Twitter.
But when watching it, I had heard rumors about it, but when I saw it happen, it was really going to be a thing. My butt puckered. I was like, no. No. It's all fun and games and a joke when it's in a separate universe and it's bad. But don't taint this universe, please, God, no. And then they had a post-credit scene in this movie where he's gone, but he leaves behind the symbiote.
Perfect.
And I can't believe how perfectly they did it. I would have never thought in a million years. No one wants to go see Spider-Man get the black suit again, you know?
Yeah.
And Secret Wars is not really an option now that everyone's off the table from Infinity War to go and let him get it away from the comics. This was perfect.
And that's like a new villain he can have in the new Spider-Man movie.
Yep.
That's not a previously established villain that they've had in this universe yet.
And now, you know what I've been saying in the past? Here I go with my nerd. Why would he ever need to get the symbiote suit in this universe when he can use the Stark suit?
God.
Guess what? He can't get the Stark suit no more, but he's going to want those power-ups.
Yeah.
So now he can have the symbiote.
They did everything right.
I'm a happy boy.
They did everything.
I'm afraid that they'll mess it up in the second one and just undo all the goodwill that they've done. But forever and ever and ever, for the rest of my life, I will at least say thank you for this movie.
No, I don't think they probably won't mess it up, because I think the first 3 movies weren't really Spider-Man-esque because they couldn't do that.
Yeah.
The Marvel movies almost always do the characters justice.
Yeah.
They just couldn't do that with Spider-Man because, like, all of that stuff was, like, the rights were taken away. They've been done a million times.
Yeah.
So they had to come up with new stuff to do.
Yeah.
But now, anything can happen. They can do Spider-Man now.
Yeah. I'm hopeful that they will. I believe in Kevin Feige. I just also always have faith in Sony to screw up a Spider-Man movie.
That is always very high probability.
Possible. But they've restored my good faith all in one movie. I am hopeful. I cried multiple times in this movie, and not just when Aunt May died, not just when everyone was on screen, as they fixed things one by one by one. Not just the times when they were supposed to make you cry. I was so happy. I literally, like, what? Because Peter Parker is someone who I identify with very carefully and very closely. And for the first time, I felt understood by the people making Spider-Man movies.
And I was frantically punching things around me, which is my version of crying.
I am sorry if I hurt you when I shoved you very hard, like 3 separate times.
Nah, I was feeling that energy when in those moments.
Before we wrap up, the soundtrack in this movie is fantastic. They brought back every villain's individual soundtrack.
I caught the Amazing Spider-Man theme in there. I was freaking
theme.
out for a second.
They do reference the Raimi theme, I think, once, real quickly. Nailed it.
Yep.
With the soundtrack, perfect. I already mentioned the cinematography's great.
The main Homecoming theme song, they like went all out with that a couple times. Yep. It was like absolutely like top notch, like epic. Like it's like a very like small song, and they had like a freaking like choir of like 4 billion people like singing this song. I was like, good God.
Yeah.
Which like it matched like the emotion of the movie. So
yeah.
That was great.
Costume design, perfect. I mean, do you have any problems with the costume design?
Costume design. They really like to have Tom Holland change his costume a lot in these movies. I don't know if I've ever liked how often he changes his costume.
Crazy. They're just selling it. It's the same thing they've been doing since the comics and since the 60s cartoon and since the 90s cartoon and since Spectacular Spider-Man. They put him in a billion costumes because kids will buy any variation of a Spider-Man costume as an action figure, and somebody out there wants to have all of them.
Funko Pop
probably paid so much money.
The movie to invent new costumes.
The reason why they did Secret Wars is because they had a deal with a toy company, and so they wanted to make new costumes for all the heroes.
Yeah.
And that's why Spider-Man got the black suit originally.
Yeah, but it would have been cool if he had that suit at the end of the movie. Mm-hmm. If he had that like in like the climax.
Yeah.
That would have been really cool.
Would have been nifty.
Like the classic suit.
Yeah, that would have been
That's all I wanted.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Crap movie, didn't have the right costume.
It was alright.
Worst movie ever. So yeah, costume design was really good, I thought.
Had some good action, some really good action.
Really good action. All 3 Spider-Men fighting together really worked. They did it right. All of them working together was really cool.
When they were in the science lab, that was really cool.
Yeah.
Because that's a very Peter Parker thing.
Oh, I didn't mention that. Yeah, all 3 of the Peters talking together and just hanging out.
Yeah, those were the best parts of the movie.
They didn't have to do that, but they did.
Those were the best parts of the movie to me.
Yeah,
them just talking about relatable Spider-Man things.
Yeah, things that people on the internet have been wanting them to talk about together forever. Yeah. They have, all of it. Having them just talk. It sounded so organic. Yeah. It sounded so real. It sounded like real conversation.
Yeah, but I specifically also liked when they were doing like science stuff.
Yeah.
Like he puts on like the lab coat.
Yeah.
And they started like messing with stuff because they haven't done that too much.
Yeah.
In the MCU with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But they finally start doing like big brain stuff.
They've hinted at it. You know, he got a scholarship with Stark and he designed his own suit at the end of Far From Home But this was the first time where it was like, no, Peter Parker is a genius.
Yeah.
And here's him doing genius things.
Yeah, that's how he like solves the problems of the movie too.
Yes, because, and this is important, mature Spider-Man doesn't kill his villains. He is always trying to save his villains. There's entire arcs where he's trying to find ways to cure them of the problems that they've had, and I can't believe that they brought that in.
Yeah.
That is how Spider-Man saves people.
Yeah.
He saves great power, great responsibility. Doesn't just mean saving the random person on the street who's being terrorized. It means saving the villains too. Everyone is your responsibility.
God,
it's so good.
God, everything from the midpoint on is just. I just did not see it coming.
Putting you in the driver's seat and dealing immediately with the drama that happened as the fallout of the last movie, I thought was a good call.
Yeah.
Like, just, I got to feel that energy. If they want to nail the next movie, just go with what you're doing and allow J. Jonah Jameson to put on a wig and then let Spider-Man work for the Daily Bugle, please.
Which they could do that.
They can do that now. That is an option.
That is a warm feeling that they can do that now.
Praise you, Jesus.
All right. That's all I got.
I was about to ask you, any final thoughts?
I am bled dry.
Yep.
This was probably a long one, but I needed this. I needed to get my thoughts out.
I am a happy boy. Thank you, Kevin Feige. Thank you, everyone who worked on this movie. Thank you.
Thank you, Spider-Man gods. Go watch this movie. Go watch this movie immediately.
Go watch it right now. If you've already seen it, watch it again. Next time on
Wind Waker.
Wind Waker. You know what to do.
And if you don't, ask someone.